Every single thing, man. Gun violence, violence in general, okay? Violent crime in general, significantly higher in red states than blue states. But like, hey, man, don't think about that. Hey, the television man is telling me California is a violent shithole. I'm saying it. I mean, I guess we can cover it from this angle, but I'm talking about at a national level.
That showdown.
Let me see if I can find it.
Of the United States, perhaps no place in America more closely associated with unions than the state of Michigan. And today, thousands of union workers descended on the Capitol to protest a new law they believe could be an ominous signal for unions and worker paychecks everywhere.
That was the scene in 2012 as Republicans in Michigan passed a vicious anti-union law known as Right to Work. But now, for the first time in 40 years, Democrats control Michigan's state government, and they have a plan to put power back in the hands of working people.
I think that we've got to use our moment that the voters have given us to help support workers whenever we can. This is our chance to right a wrong.
That's State Senator Darren Camilleri. He's leading the charge to reverse Republicans' power grab for corporations.
Right to work, like you said, very misleadingly named law, essentially is the right to freeload. Makes it so that workers at unionized companies don't have to pay union dues but still get to benefit from collective bargaining agreements.
So this is like, I want you to understand something. If you feel like every aspect of this kind of legislation is sold as though it's like pro-labor, and even like the actual nitty-gritty, like the actual fine print of the legislation in and of itself is not directly making it like illegal, right? But significantly crippling unionization from happening and unions funding itself. That is by design. Okay? I need you to understand. That is by design. Okay? This is how they go after labor unions in a less direct capacity. They go after it by stopping its funding vehicle, okay? They go after it by crippling labor union dues. Now, if you have ever worked at a shop that is not unionized, you've already seen this in action, right? You've seen the anti-labor union videos that they show you that are comical in nature, okay? And this is basically the legislated version of that. The classic, oh, your labor union dues are like another tax. You could buy a PlayStation with that, right? That in and of itself is basically this legislation that makes it so that you don't have to fucking pay union dues. Okay, well then what the fuck? How is the union going to, create strike funds? How is the union going to offer additional benefits? How is the union going to be able to pay for a bargaining committee? Bro, one of my coworkers doesn't pay union dues and just spits Ben Shapiro talking points all day. I want to fucking die. Yeah. The goal of this is to specifically harm unionization and union action and destroy it. Here, let's watch this and then we'll get back to the more perfect union video.
In a number of states, a battle is being waged over so-called right-to-work laws, which should really be called right-to-work is wrong laws because they're so bad for workers. Right-to-work sounds harmless, but it's not. Consider these facts. The average worker in states with right-to-work laws makes 12.2% less annually than workers in states without right.
I wonder how that works. If only there was, again, additional empirical evidence as to how labor union participation or labor unions actually boost wages and benefits packages. Oh, well, I'm not a journalist, right? I can't fucking Google this kind of thing to find out that, according to the NLRB at least, that there is an immediate 10% benefit in wages when a shop is unionized.
Right-to-work laws when all other factors are removed. People in right-to-work states are less likely to have health insurance and pay more out-of-pocket for insurance. Right-to-work states have higher poverty, higher infant mortality, less investment in education, and higher workplace fatalities. So why do right-to-work laws hurt workers in all these ways? Because these laws destroy unions. That's their purpose. Here's how. Under the National Labor Relations Act of 1935, when a majority of workers votes for a union in their workplace, they're entitled to have a union. And that union bargains with management for higher wages and better working conditions. The union has bargaining clout because all workers at that company are union members. That's what union means. Right to work takes away the rights of workers in a union to collect dues from everyone in the bargaining unit who benefits from the bargains. This eventually eliminates the resources the union needs to bargain for higher wages and put pressure on employers. When unions are able to get higher wages and better working conditions, this raises the bar.
I like that you're showing all the socialist stuff. Nothing I've shown you so far is socialist. This guy literally is the labor secretary for Bill motherfucking Clinton, okay? Robert Reich has a lot of great opinions, and like I said, he is aligned with my worldview in the United States of America, in contemporary American society, but I would not say he is a socialist by any means, especially considering that he wrote a book recently titled Saving Capitalism. Doesn't matter though, because I'm not, I think, a more realistic person than the average like accelerationist or whatever. And I think that you know, you need to make marginal improvements in the lives of the American working class wherever you can. And social democrats are wonderful allies in that regard because they are also considered radicals in the United States of America currently.
For all workers. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the corporate-backed American Legislative Exchange Council are pushing these right-to-work laws because they claim they care about workers. But who are they trying to fool? The Chamber of Commerce and ALEC don't care about workers. They represent corporations. The truth is, their corporate sponsors don't want American workers to have the bargaining power they need to get higher wages and better hours and working conditions. The Chamber and ALEC say right-to-work states attract more businesses. The truth is, they attract businesses that seek lower wages. Businesses.
Yes. There's two ways to attract, I guess not attract businesses, but like attract workers and have a better economy, okay? You can either improve the material conditions of the working class, or you can continue to depress wages further and hopefully attract more businesses to your area in low-cost zones. And then once your economy and your labor force is entirely crippled, you can turn around and say, but hey, guys, unemployment is low now. Look, see? People are working these shit-ass jobs where they get no fucking pay, barely make ends meet. Come on. Things are great. And then neoliberal economists, not Robert Reich, he's not one of them, but neoliberal economists can fucking sit there and write New York Times articles about like, why is the American working class so fucking stupid and don't recognize the genuine gains made by the Biden presidency on behalf of, combating inflation? Why? The economy's doing great, but will Americans realize that? Or is the economy actually doing great?
That don't invest in their workers, don't do research and development, don't add value, and therefore are the most likely to go abroad for even cheaper labor at the slightest provocation. It's bad enough American wages have been stuck in the mud for 3 decades while corporate profits have soared and top executive pay has gone through the stratosphere, and that almost all the economic gains have been going to the top 1%. So-called right-to-work laws are part of this problem and are making all this even worse. The only way average Americans are going to get a fair share of the gains is if they have more bargaining power, as they did 50 years ago when 1/3 of all workers in the private sector were unionized. Now, fewer than 7% are. We have to increase all workers.
No. Let's do that again.
Is if they have more bargaining power, as they did 50 years ago when 1/3 of all workers in the private sector were unionized.
1/3 of all workers in the private sector were unionized.
Now, fewer than 7% are.
In the private sector. The total unionized workforce in America is 10%.
We have to increase, not reduce, the bargaining power of average people. So don't be fooled by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the American Legislative Exchange Council. They want to lower your wages so big shareholders and top executives can rake in even more. Don't let them. Join the fight against so-called right-to-work laws.
10% is a lot higher than I imagined. 10% is higher than you imagine. That's crazy. No, man. 10% is devastating. 10% is really fucking bad, especially when there are no over-encompassing collective bargaining agreements across sectors like you have in places like France. If you look at the sheer number of like labor union participation in European nations, for example, you will not get the full picture. Okay? In a country like Chile, which we fucking eviscerated, destroyed, cooed, and also rewrote the Constitution with like, American neoliberal, predatory, vulturous, capitalist fucking college professors, that country has a higher union participation than the United States of America. Think about that. One of the funniest parts about this conversation is always how like right-wing weirdos will utilize the existing labor protections in Nordic countries, for example, to say, they don't even need minimum wage. They don't even have a federally mandated minimum wage. It's like, yeah, they don't need to have a fucking minimum wage, dumbass. Because if they have a minimum wage that ends up having a depressive effect on wages across the board, they still have like not a mandatory minimum wage, but a understood minimum wage in general in all of those Nordic countries. Okay. But overall, whenever right-wing sickos try to use that as an example to like destroy minimum wage in this country, okay, and eviscerate it, it's like, it's such a stupid counter because they already have entire sectors engaging in collective bargaining. Contract and minimum wage via sectoral bargaining is the name of the game. Exactly.
And let them know, right to work is wrong.
Yeah, that's actually a really funny take as well. The percentage of workers belonging to a union in the United States peaked in 1954 at almost 35%, and the total number of union members peaked in 1979 at an estimated 21 million. This is a good take. It absolutely is tragic that you can easily argue every single conservative policy is bad through pointing at how dog shit conservative states are in literally every single metric. Every single metric. But yet, it's just this odd thing that we just have to like not think about or talk about. Like as though it's not glaringly obvious. Like every single thing, man. Gun violence. Violence in general. Okay? Violent crime in general. Significantly higher in red states than blue states. But like, hey, man. Don't think about that. Hey, the television man is telling me California is a fucking violent shithole. So I'm going to believe that. Okay? I'm going to believe that instead. I choose to believe that instead. Crime is out of control in blue states, actually. Alabama is a part of the global south. It absolutely is. Parts of this country in deep red districts and states have conditions that are so devastating that they are akin to developing nation conditions. Nations that we have destroyed, nations that we have stolen from. Okay? The internal colony, the interior colonial mindset is no longer simply a matter of black and white, okay? Some might even say it never was. We have literally colonized our own country, okay? We treat our own working class like shit. So much so, and this is an example I use all the fucking time. You've heard me say it a bunch of times, okay? Hyundai, Toyota, Kia, German manufacturers in Volkswagen, Porsche, and others that have union shops in their own nation states are able to set up manufacturing facilities in America that are non-union and literally get caught for avoiding child labor laws, like the Bessemer facility for Hyundai. Was it Bessemer? Think about that. Let's continue.
Brought on by the unions.
To do what they did.
No, Bessemer is where the Amazon labor distribution facility was. I was thinking of Bessemer. I don't think it was Bessemer. The Hyundai plant was not in Bessemer. Hyundai was also in Alabama, a different part of Alabama, I forget. All right, let's continue.
To benefit from collective unionized companies don't have to pay union dues but still get to benefit from collective bargaining agreements brought on by the unions.
To do what they did 10 years ago behind closed doors was devastating. It, struck a chord with working people, and it's something that they've never forgotten.
Led by Governor Rick Snyder, Republicans' goal was to cripple labor unions and make it harder for workers to collectively bargain for better wages, benefits, and working conditions. And it worked. Unions lost 40,000 members in the last 10 years, and wages stagnated.
So it cut the power of working people, right? It showed that corporations have much more say than their workers, and it showed these exact workers all over the state that the government cared more about profits than it did about people.
In a state that was once a stronghold of organized labor, how did corporations gain the upper hand? And can Democrats actually put power back in the hands of working people? We went to Michigan to find out. To understand the current fight over right to work, we have to go back to the New Deal.
So in 1935, Congress passed the National Labor Relations Act. That was the first national labor law that provided protection to workers in the private sector, the right to organize and an obligation on the part of the employer to bargain a collective bargaining agreement. After the law was passed in 1935, elections were held across the country in workplaces for workers to choose a union. And
America's most popular and most successful president, but that's besides the point, right?
And unions were winning these elections at an extremely high rate, nearly 100% of the time.
That's Robert Bruno, a professor of labor history at the University of Illinois.
And then in the 1940s, the labor movement began to expand its organizing into the South, and they were making significant gains where they were organizing new members in the Deep South, places like Texas, for example. As a result of that growth of the labor movement, there was a movement generated by white supremacists in the South connected to the business community who organized around the idea of passing the so-called right to work laws to try to stop the labor movement from expanding into the South. Ultimately, when Republicans took control of the United States Congress in 1946, high on their agenda was the passage of a right to work bill known as the Taft-Hartley Law.
While the Taft-Hartley Act cut off the rise of unions in the South, labor continued to flourish in northern states, especially in Michigan.
By the way, this is precisely the reason why I always say that the American government's opinion on labor unions, any kind of labor momentum, any kind of working class movement has inherently been antagonistic. Okay? This is it. Anytime workers have been able to make gains in that direction, the American government has cracked the fucking whip. Make no mistake, that is what its position is. That is what it's there to do. Bought and paid for by corporate entities. The only time when this has moved in the other direction was after genuine economic turmoil and with a lot of outside pressure from a collection of trade unionists, workers in general, communists, socialists, and the like.
Michigan.
Michigan was the home of the United Auto Workers, and it was the efforts of the United Auto Workers in the 30s and the 40s and beyond that really brought to life the labor movement.
The union density in Michigan, at one point we were 38% union. I mean, so for every 10 jobs, there was almost 4 out of 10 were union. So when I was a kid, it was a big deal. It was, people knew about unions, they understood it.
My father was a firefighter. He became a union president for Local 366. They didn't have medical, they didn't have optical, they didn't have hospitalization. My father fought for those. And
I want to point to something else here. These are immediate tangible benefits that the union offered them. Some things that we still take for granted, for example, due to labor action and labor militancy, is the abolition of child labor laws, which the Republicans are desperately bringing back right now in a big way. okay? And the weekend, like OSHA, like all matter of gains that people take for granted were fought for, okay? And paid for with blood. I need you to understand that. More than just a response to organizing in the South, the Taft-Hartley was a response to the 1945-46 strike wave, the largest in U.S. history of 5 million workers. 32 reasons to thank a union. Weekends without work, all breaks at work, including your lunch breaks, paid vacation, Family and Medical Leave Act, sick leave, Social Security, Minimum Wage, Civil Rights Act, and Title VII, which prohibits employer discrimination, 8-hour workday, overtime pay, child labor laws, Occupational Safety and Health Act, OSHA, 40-hour work week, workers' comp, unemployment insurance, pensions, workplace safety standards and regulations, employer health care insurance, collective bargaining rights for employees, wrongful termination laws, Age Discrimination and Employment Act, whistleblower protection laws, Employee Polygraph Protection Act, the EPPA, which prohibits employers from using a lie detector test on an employee, Veterans Employment and Training Services, compensation increases in evaluation, sexual harassment laws, Americans with Disabilities Act, holiday pay, employer dental life and vision insurance, privacy rights, pregnancy and parental leave, military leave, the right to strike, public education for children, Equal Pay Acts of 1963 and 2011, requires employers to pay men and women equally for the same amount of work, laws ending sweatshops in the United States, okay? Every single material gain made for Americans have come with union support. Hard fought by union organizers and rank and filers, okay?
Pledge allegiance to greed. We do not pledge allegiance to Wall Street. We do not pledge allegiance to corporate profit. We pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to our fellow man, to the betterment of all people. And that's why we are here today.
I yield the rest of my time to the Congresswoman from New York.
Thank you so much. Let's do it again because it's just so fun. Toot toot. My name is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It is an honor to be here. It is a true, true honor to be here. And I want to say that personally and also as an elected official, because being invited to a picket line is not an honor to be taken lightly. That extended hand comes from a sense of mutual relationship, of trust, and most importantly, of action. We're all here today because our economy is in a special kind of crisis. Our whole economy is in a special kind of crisis. Now, if you ask a Washington insider or a Wall Street analyst, they will tell you, I don't know what you're talking about. They'll say, look at GDP, look at the growth rates. They'll say, look at job numbers. How are we in a crisis? And that's an easy thing to say for someone who primarily experiences this economy on paper, who aren't choosing between childcare and work or medicine and rent. It's easy to say that when you're not making those decisions. Because those of us who do have to make those decisions feel the economy in the calluses of our hands and the aches of our joints at the end of a long day when we don't have any time left, proper time to spend with our children or loved ones. That's where we feel the economy, and that is where this crisis is going on today. What the figures in Washington and Wall Street don't reflect is that in a time of record profits, CEOs of the big three are giving themselves 40% raises and gobbling billions of dollars to manipulate stock prices off of your backbreaking labor. The reality is we are living in an absolute economic crisis of inequality. One where prices are skyrocketing, not because workers are making an insane amount more, but because CEO excess is at insane levels that we've never seen before. And they are squeezing the working class of this country to the brink to pay for it. Their yachts are paid with our low wages and our cut benefits. And we have to say no more. We need to say enough is enough. UAW, you are all showing all the working people of this nation that the only way to change the tide in an economy that is built for the 1% is only if working people of all backgrounds and differences come together and act. And that is what the stand-up strike is all about. The way we win this is to know that solidarity is the strategy. And I want us to reflect on that, because the 1% in this country does everything within an inch of their life to break the grip and make us turn on each other. That is what they do. They finance a media to divide us by race and geography and class and culture. They make us argue over whether people of different identities deserve rights. We need to unite and stand up for ourselves as a collective and stop this nonsense and demand the economic dignity that we all deserve. Solidarity is the strategy.
Yo, she's such a fake, dude. She's such a phony. You know, unlike me, I'm a real traditional, rugged, working class IWW supporter. You know what I mean? What have I done? I have a Substack where I write about esoteric Marxism. I'm doing real existing socialism, actually. That's what I'm doing. And most of the time you'll see me criticizing AOC, of course, because, like, you know, MAGA communism is the way to go. I'm a real communist. AOC, on the other hand, bad. She's bad. She's doing a bad job arguing her points, and she's just bad in general, I think. Genuinely asking about how do labor unions have a relation to schooling for children? Like I said, every single gain, every single benefit made for the working class, any kind of legislation that has been passed in American Congress throughout history has been done with labor union participation, labor union support, labor union attacks in the right direction. I don't know if you know this, but, you know, teachers have a union as well, for example.
Us sticking together breaks up their approach. They don't know what to do when people are unified. So when they say that prices have...
For the record, I was joking about the AOC thing. I don't know. There's usually some people who don't get it. But I'm joking. I like
to go up to accommodate treating workers right. We say that it's their greed and excess that has to end. When they claim that they have to lay people off, we need to remind people that the average worker in this country has to work for 400 years to make what these folks pay themselves in one. And when the big three don't want to take the value of their workers seriously, then they have given workers no other option but to force them to value their labor with a stand-up strike. There is simply no other choice. We have seen what happens when people don't stand up for themselves, when we don't get the solidarity and support in Washington and among media and from coast to coast. We've seen what happens. In 2008, after these same executives gambled people's homes and millions of Americans went into foreclosure, they had the audacity to turn around and blame the same workers getting kicked out of their homes. That is an outrage. And we have to say the math ain't mathin' there. It doesn't make any sense there. That's an absurdity there. And in 2008, these members saw their pay and their benefits cut, all for a myth and an IOU for them to say one day when we are better, we'll make it right. Well, time to cash the check.
That's the best part about this entire conversation is that, like, or I guess the saddest part about it is that a lot of these gains that are being made on promises that the capital owners falsely put forward, that, like, one day we would give you back some of the things that you had, some of the workplace compensation structures that you already had that you were willingly give up, that you were willingly giving away to save this corporation at a time of like economic turmoil. But of course, this is why I always say, if we relied on the magnanimous nature of bosses, then there would be no problems, right? If bosses truly were just nice and they offered better compensation across the board in the current structure that we have, then yeah, there'd be no need for any of these fights. But that doesn't happen. Why should it happen? They are self-interested.
It's time to cash this check. Toot-toot. Toot-toot. And I'll end with this. We started this whole gathering today by pledging allegiance to that flag right there. And that flag means something. It means something. This is the flag of the United States of America, whose red stands for valor. Valor of the Americans, all the Americans, including the labor activists who died and spilled blood so we could have a weekend and health care.
Good stuff.
The white stands for purity of our intent and commitment to one another as Americans, the purity of our unity, the purity of our love for our fellow man. That blue stands for justice and vigilance. It stands for dedication and justice. But this flag doesn't mean those things just because someone said that. This flag means those things because we dedicate and live up to it with our actions. That's what makes that flag mean something. We do not pledge allegiance to greed. We do not pledge allegiance to Wall Street. We do not pledge allegiance to corporate profit. We pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to our fellow man, to the betterment of all people. And that's why we are here today. When you strike, you pour meaning into that flag. And I thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, UAW.
I don't care about the flag thing, but the rest of his fire. Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, dude. What are you talking about? Like, I want people to understand something, okay? Like, reframing American patriotism on the boundaries of like helping out the labor movement is going to be a decent fucking thing, okay? It's understandable. This is the audience. Like, what are you talking about? No one is like a fucking Maoist third worldist there, okay? And neither are you. Let's be real. Like, goddamn, chat. It's just impossible for people to recognize good rhetoric for some reason. I feel like we're allergic to it. You gotta make do with what you have, okay? It's the same mentality behind a national socialism, perhaps. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah. Reframing patriotism on the boundaries of like helping fellow workers is actually national socialism. No, this is the exact same energy. Fuck, Jesus Christ, dude. It's so stupid to hyper focus on this aspect of the conversation when she's like cutting propaganda. This is the same energy as like r/atheism Andes coming into the chat and being like, we should spend all of our time shitting on Christianity and religion. Okay? Religion in general. It's like, dude, use these concepts that have no material bearing to your advantage. They are already existing concepts. Okay? Imagine like telling this lady that she is a part of the imperial core and has blood in her hands, and as a member of the labor aristocracy, she will never understand the plight of the third world. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, go ahead, dude. She's like, hey, we should get healthcare and stuff. I think it's pretty fucked up that we don't. And then the sweatiest, grossest fucking like Marxist, Leninist, Maoist you've ever fucking seen, will now tell this lady, I've never worked a job in my life. I will now tell her that she actually is against. I'm an ultra fucking I'm an ultra leftist, okay? You don't understand. I am going to now tell you how you are in the wrong as well. I really agree with that take, but is it good speech propaganda? But don't you always say that we can't take patriotism for conservatives? Because that in and of itself is not about like patriotism at all. That is about making gains. Doing it under the banner of like the real America is actually a working class America is effective propaganda. Okay? It's the same as utilizing religion as a simple talking point in a larger conversation about material gains, okay? Like Christianity and the reality of Christianity. Debate lib brigaders in the chat absolutely coming buckets right now. Pushy's saying the flag gets meaning when we come together, not that it has meaning, so we need to come together for it. Exactly. Putting nationalism in the forefront or patriotism in the forefront of the conversation and utilizing it to further erode the class consciousness that we must have is what Republicans do. Okay? Why do you respond to these people whose liberalism is built around owning mom and dad? I think it's important. There's a lot of people in here that are on the right side. They want to fight the good fight, but sometimes maybe they have their own personal hangups. And it's important to help people reconsider that.
Got them. The union has got Michigan to where they're at.
And then, in 2012, Right to Work came to Michigan.
There was no hearing. There were no public availabilities. They passed the entire thing in one day. The governor signed it behind closed doors because they knew.
Famous Asante, even Nazis get healthcare? Yeah, 100%. I've said it many, many times over, and I'll say it with my fucking chest always.
What they were doing was incredibly unpopular. The people of Michigan did not want to see a change in our workplace protections and our union protections.
The intent was really to just weaken unions, and by doing that, you're really weakening the middle class.
Republicans sold Right to Work as a way to attract new jobs and businesses.
This can be good for economic development, for more and better jobs coming to Michigan. We've watched closely what's gone on in Indiana. They've seen many more companies look at Indiana, citing this as one of the factors, the fact they did it back in February, and they could have thousands more jobs in that state because they became a right-to-work state.
This has not been the case. Instead, workers have suffered as unions struggle to attract new members.
We were organizing, we just got done organizing 5 or 6 plants. I mean, we were frankly kicking ass. And then everything changed that day in December of 2012. I mean, it literally changed everything.
When Michigan implements right to work and weakens worker rights in the state, is you see a significant reduction in the average earnings and a significant reduction in the hourly wage in comparison to states that are strong worker rights states. You see a reduction in the percentage of workers that have employer-paid health care. Poverty levels were a bit higher in right-to-work states like Michigan. Fatality rates, on-the-job fatality rates, were significantly higher in states that pass right-to-work laws.
But after 10 years, workers have had enough.
Right now, we get more.
By every metric, again, every single metric, there is not a single metric where the South actually, or Southern states, red states in general, actually beat out any other any other state in this nation. Okay, it's just none. This does not mean I'm a Democrat, but even the marginal differences between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party bear itself out in the data. Okay, marginal disagreements and marginal differences between the two parties actually lead to a ton of real world change on the ground. Okay, corporate profits or murder per capita, obviously like mass incarceration, things of that nature, but that's not what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about like there's no good thing. There is nothing that is good, even within those marginal differences. I mean, look at look at how expensive it is to live in blue states. And yet, even with all of that, even with all of those issues, all of these other problems that we talk about in the United States of America is still worse in Republican-controlled states than Democrat-controlled ones. Now, of course, media will do everything in its power to make you feel like that is not the reality, make you feel like it's the exact opposite. Crime is running rampant in you know, Democrat-run cities, crime is running rampant, and Democrat-run states. Look at crime. It's like, no, man, it's worse. It's worse in fucking red states, dog. It's literally worse. And for the record, it's not for some like weird. It's not because of some other like third thing that I will not describe. It's very obvious why it's happening. It is a consequence of material conditions. Crime is born out of your material conditions. Okay. Yes, if you are in a red state, you are going to be poorer on average. If you're in a red state that is poorer on average, where there's a much larger percentage of poor people, then there's going to be a higher percentage of crime. And then also it doesn't help when you make it easier to get a gun. And then the violent crime turns into gun violence in general.
More calls than we have ever had for people wanting to organize.
And thanks to the support of working people, Democrats are back in control of Michigan's government.
Oh, I mean, I think there's no trifecta without labor. And in Michigan, we haven't had a trifecta in 40 years. And in those 40 years, we've been promising, you know, better labor laws, better protections for workers.
We've just got to make sure that we are in a position now with this new power to deliver on the campaign promises that we've made. And one of those, in my instance, is repealing the anti-union right to work law.
Gretchen Whitmer, she said that she's going to repeal this, and I believe she will. Do I think that she's going to help the unions? Big time. I hope that we hold her feet to the fire and make sure she does.
Senator Camilleri has introduced the bill to repeal the right to work law.
We are seeing a resurgence of union activism, not only here in Michigan, but everywhere in the country, because we've seen the power of what unions can do. They can help you get better wages, they can help you get better health care and better benefits, and folks would prefer that, right? Whether you're somebody who works at Starbucks, or you're potentially having a conversation at Amazon and some of the warehouses, or even places like Chipotle. The economy might look a little different, but the strength and the power of unions stays the same.
Already, the bill is under attack from corporate lobbyists and the right-wing think tanks that they fund.
I mean, so far we've seen organizations that are on the right wing of the right wing, Americans for Prosperity and a few other groups like that, that have started their anti-campaign.
By all means, you know, let the chamber attack me for helping raise people's wages.
Fucking Alec and Americans for Prosperity, like the real demons, dude. The demons that you don't even fucking hear about. Okay, I literally work at Chipotle. Where is this shit? Brother, Lansing, Michigan. Hasanabi heads unite. First ever unionized Chipotle shop. You can be the Hasanabi head that works to unionize your Chipotle as well. I'm also setting up. Be the Hasanabi head you want to see in the world. Yeah, exactly. But you know, what do I fucking do? What do I know? I don't do shit, brother. I don't practice what I preach. You know how it is. All right, let's continue.
And restoring their pension funds. If they want to paint me as a bad guy for making sure that working people can retire and you know, have a dignified life, have at it.
Michigan is on its way to repealing right to
ununionized work isn't the biggest issue for people today. Guns aren't the biggest issue. What? Oh God, shut up. Really? It's actually the 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour? That's like, you're 9 minutes early. I shouldn't have done that. See, that's a good example of what not to do, okay? I just ate that bait. I ate that bait. You should have waited a little bit longer, but you're right. At the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break, by the way. Here's the 3-minute ad break now.
Work. But in states across the country, workers need more bargaining power, not less. If Michigan succeeds, it would be the first state to repeal a right to work law in 60 years.
Sakura Gore, thank you for the 20
gifted subs. It could set an
subs.
example for other states hoping to restore power to working people.